Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Omair. I am the Chief Medical Officer for JumpStart. And with me today is...
I'm Coach Richardson, Chris Richardson. I'm a coach, professor, coach for Team USA, work in Team USA Coaches Education. And I also design and develop all the training protocols and development for our JumpStart training systems. And we're super excited today because we're going to be going over safety with our JumpStart systems. And obviously, no better than Omair here when we're talking about how we're developing our training systems and our programs and what they're used for. And because one of the first things I heard is like, is this safe?
Yeah.
Right?
So, my main job, safety and application. Is it safe? Now, the great thing is the science has showed, yes, it is safe. So, depending, again, on if you have any, pre-existing medical, conditions. So, the biggest thing is... with patients, patients or athletes, you want to make sure they don't have any circulatory problems. Now, older people, you'll see varicose veins, anyone with abnormal clotting times, atherosclerotic vessels, arterial calcifications, things like that. Then, yes, you want to be careful with BFR use. Okay, so again, yes, anyone can use it, but make sure you're seeing your doctor, making sure you don't have any of these issues because we don't want to exacerbate anything. The other thing you want to kind of look for, diabetes, hypertension, infection, sickle cell trait, that kind of stuff. We have a list online of things you want to watch out for. But basically, you were asking me earlier, okay, well, I have an athlete. How am I going to use this?
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to use it safely? And what are the side effects? So, let me ask you, have you, when you use it, what are some of the side effects that you've noticed or someone kind of complains about?
I think the discomfort. I think that's the thing that jumps at, some of the perceptive components of, from a safety or sensation standpoint is like, oh, this is restrictive or it's tight or they kind of feel that right away.
Or the burn that sometimes, because again, it's not, especially for your trained athletes, it's not easy. Depending on the pressures that you're using too. Yeah, you've got that metabolite accumulation and you're going to feel the burn and just getting used to, I guess, the discomfort. I like how you said discomfort, and there's a difference between discomfort and pain. And again, if you're feeling actual pain, then yes, you can either reduce the pressure or take off the unit and kind of figure out what's going on there. So one thing I did want to go over was kind of the some of the side effects people are saying, common ones. A little bit of bruising on the site of the actual use. Sometimes the skin in that area is just not used to it. And then the other one is numbness and tinglings that sometimes people feel in their hands. Now, the research has shown that, the numbness, tingling, it's pretty transient. But when you have people with prolonged use of it, so, hours, over an hour, stuff like that, yes, you're going to have longer numbing and tingling, numbness and tingling, sorry. And the good thing is, I know the protocol that you put together, we took that into account, right? Yeah. And we kept those times reasonable. And then if you do have numbness or tingling, it's pretty transient, right?
And so that's where, with the training protocols, putting the athlete or the individual in a position where they can start to judge it and develop it themselves within a workout, whether it's, and it might be a little time consuming. I'm just thinking from a practical standpoint to deflate and inflate again within the same training session. But I think it's so important, especially for those individuals that are maybe not as conditioned to the sensation it gives you when you work out with it, just so they can allow themselves to fluctuate and kind of grow with the level of feeling that they're getting. But from a neurological perspective, how it relates to the nervous system, where are you seeing some of the research go when it relates to safety or making sure that their limb doesn't fall off, right? That's where a lot of people think that if I stop this, then my it's going to stop. My arm's going to fall off. Yeah. And so what would you say to them?
Yeah, to them, I mean, you don't have to worry about it with our product. We have pretty good, especially with the training protocol we put together. We're nowhere near the amount of time you need to actually cause serious damage, So I'm comfortable with, kind of putting that out there and putting this product out there without having serious adverse side effects. One of the other things that people do see is bruising. Now, one of the great things and the easiest ways we can kind of mitigate that is, especially with athletes, compression. So, I got compression either a sleeve on, or you could have compression shirt, compression shorts.
Yeah.
And then that makes a huge difference. It's also, it's a little bit more comfortable. You might still get a tiny bit of bruising maybe, but it's a little bit more comfortable on the skin. It's a super easy fix. Yeah. So The other thing was, people were worried about like blood clots and stuff like that. The research hasn't showed any issues with blood clots. One of the interesting things is that I spoke about in another podcast was it actually releases this thing called TPA, and that's like anti-clotting. So that's another interesting thing that people bring up a lot. So not too worried there. And then there are like relative contraindications that we went over, kind of the diabetes, hypertension thing. And then there's like absolute ones, which again, we have a list online for things you want to look for there. And then we encourage everyone to kind of speak to your medical provider and make sure this is safe for you, for your situation, because everyone is, again, a little different. So we want to take that into account.
Yeah, based on the individuality, that's what I love. For me, being in the physical education realm for the last 15 years, knowing how critical individualization is when it comes to, physical fitness training, whether it's you're a high level athlete or you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to, lean up. And that's where I feel that when it comes to JumpStart, how we're able to take BFR and make it more of a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
And like utilizing it long term. Obviously this science has been around for over 50 years. It's been utilized in a lot of different realms and a lot of different worlds, now more so probably in the clinical setting, but ultimately this is a lifelong product.
Yeah.
And so is there anything that you can speak to from whether it's like benefits from like the stem cell side or like, as it relates to muscle growth, or anything that you want to touch on that kind of illustrates the science behind it being beneficial from like a lifelong perspective?
Yeah. So, the biggest thing is kind of how do we get that longevity?
Yeah.
And, through the process of cellular swelling, getting those muscle cells to go in and out of that process, that's actually very important because with disuse, you actually lose that ability, and this constantly pinpoints that process. The other thing I wanted to say was it doesn't matter what your short-term goals are. Some people are like, I want to gain this much muscle mass. I want to lose this much fat. I'm training for this race. I'm doing that. It doesn't matter what your goals are at that time, and then over time they're going to change, right? You might be 19 right now. Well, I'm a bodybuilder, right? That's what you're thinking to yourself. And then you get in, later 20s, you're like, what? Maybe I don't want to do this anymore. I'm maybe into a little bit of powerlifting. Okay, switch it up. And then, all of a sudden you want to become an endurance athlete. It doesn't matter what stage you're in. This can still be applied and safely, which I think is pretty important.
It's funny because like I never did a podcast before. Never thought I'd ever be on a podcast ever. But, being here, obviously, talking to you is like normal and cool. Like, it's like I can do this stuff all day. But like I'm trying to like envision, how people try to get over like the discomfort of like talking. Okay, what is this like? What is this feeling? I'm trying to envision like, okay, it's just only my mom's going to watch this. Yeah. So I'm like trying to think, okay, is my mom going to get it, right?
Yeah.
So at the same time, I want to make sure that we're all getting it and like, okay, because only my mom's my biggest supporter, right? Yeah. My mom and my wife. And so they're going to watch this. Those are only people in the world that are going to watch this. So this is who I'm talking to, right? Yeah. And obviously as our audience grows, and you guys start to send in questions, we'll start to answer those. And then maybe I can envision a different person. But at right now, it's just my mom and my wife that are watching. But when we say these things, like, we're talking all this science, and because I want to go into like the myogenic response, and obviously that's something we can get into a little bit later. But when it not just the lifelong, because you touched on like, okay, weight training and bodybuilder and endurance athlete, and from a safety standpoint, like obviously we can't predict like if somebody's going to get diabetes. We can't predict if you're gonna be subject to hypertension later in life. Is JumpStart still safe regardless of the health parameter that you're going to experience? Like obviously it's a spectrum, right? It
is a spectrum.
Your health journey is different.
So relative contraindications are diabetes, hypertension. It just depends on like what level it's at. Now the interesting thing about BFR, yes, it could be applied to anything, but we're hoping that, if we get you started now, this is not going to just change the way you work out, but we're hoping it makes positive changes in the way you live your life. If I am adding this just to my workouts, I'm going to hopefully be a little bit more cognizant of what I'm putting in my body, especially if your goal is longevity. That's my goal. When you're younger, you're just like, hey, I want to be the biggest dude, whatever. For me, I want to stay in motion at an old age and then die, at like the, probably not the peak of my life, but like the peak for my age, So hopefully with this, and it gets us cognizant of, okay, well, I have this body for the rest of whatever my life is going to be. I got to take the best care of it. It's kind of like the way I look at it. And hopefully that you get changes in your diet, start changing on maybe a little bit of adding stretching routines, having healthy relationships with other people. It all kind of ties together. So yes, I'm not trying to say, hey, buy this product, it's going to change your entire life, but I just want you to get cognizant of like making those changes and then hopefully having that positive effect down the road.
Yeah, you brought up something. I want to say it now just because I have been getting these questions. Could you use JumpStart for yoga and Pilates? And for me, I would say that maybe from an systemic standpoint, like if you want to use it to maybe get your body going before, like a 5-minute, 3-minute off,
yes,
5-minute on, and then go into your yoga or Pilates routine, it could be amazing, right? It can actually open you up. But what would you say when it comes, because I would imagine that, and I tried to do a little bit, but there isn't a lot of science behind it that I've found. But what is your perspective on using it?
Yeah, I know. I had someone actually ask me, well, I'm doing a Zumba class. How can I use this? Well, especially like if you're doing it on your own, of course, you can switch it up any way you want and kind of go through those poses. That's fine. If you're doing it in a class, you might, especially like yoga or something like that, people are getting like in the zone. And with you like undoing Velcro straps and kind of like not being aware of maybe your surroundings or what kind of doing at that time, I wouldn't necessarily like myself use it in that situation. But outside of that, again, like you said, maybe before you start your routine, some people after, if you've already got the blood flowing, it's like, hey, you want to do a little workout or get, yeah, definitely. It just depends on who's around you, who's okay with you maybe like disrupting their kind of Zen state. So yes, you can use it, and it doesn't necessarily, just because you're using it like for yoga, maybe you just want to use it for a certain posture that you're not good at, or you want to kind of build that endurance. Yeah, sure, go ahead. You can practice that posture with these with the cuffs on. It shouldn't be an issue. It just depends on where you're at and your surroundings.
Yeah, because I would go and when I do like coaches certifications, I try to get coaches to understand that's like practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And so I'm always in that mode because I'm like in coach mode where I'm like, okay, let's optimize what we're doing. But the cool thing about BFR, and I would love to get your take on this, because what I was thinking is, what if somebody used it wrong? What if they used it too low in their arms? They're not going to get the benefits. But I had to think back. It's like, the most important thing is not going to hurt you. Yeah. Right. But the ideal is to use it as high as possible on your arm or your leg. But if you're, maybe half awake or you're not paying attention, you put it too low on your extremity. Yeah. It's not going to hurt you, but it's not going to benefit you at the same rate. What's your take on that?
So yeah, we want proper use of it, and the good thing is we did put videos together on how to use it properly. And the good thing is like, having it in those different areas, you will feel the difference. If it's too low on your arm, it's either right on your bicep or below it. And you're going to know, hey, my workout didn't feel the same. My arm feels a little weird. As long as you're pretty proximal on that arm, usually above the bicep, same thing on the legs. You can mess around with like putting it in different spots, but if you want the most benefit, keep it as proximal as possible. The more distal you go, the more superficial your vasculature gets, and that's where you're kind of really compressing, either nerves or that vasculature. When you go proximal, that vasculature is thicker and it's deeper. Yeah. So just for the safety aspect, that's why we want it up higher.
Yeah. So, Mom, what he's saying is that it's dummy proof, right? So,
just follow what we put together and watch the videos. But sorry.
And if anybody, I'm thinking we probably should offer our CEO to actually go out to every single person's home that's having trouble putting it on, and send him out there to put it on them.
Yeah. I think it's the best. He's got a lot of time. Thing. He's
not doing anything.
Not doing much. At all. So. And he loves talking to people, random people, and usually other people are uncomfortable talking to him, but he usually just makes it worse.
Yeah, and he's vaccinated, so all the better. So when it comes to using it correctly, using it as safe as possible, I'm looking forward to hearing how everybody responds to it. Obviously we're just getting off the ground, and there's a lot to it, and when it comes to the actual knowledge, I don't think that we're taking shortcuts. I feel that we're really getting into the weeds of this. And so any final thoughts as it relates to safety or any protocols that you might want to share with everybody?
Yeah, so the good thing is all like training protocol, safety, all that stuff, we all have that online. And comes with the kit also. So any questions, please reach out to us. We want to make sure everyone kind of gets all those answered, and we want proper and safe use of JumpStart.
Yeah, so all right, other than that, if there are any questions, reach out to us. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you go through the go through the membership site and go through our website, email us, call us, whatever it takes. You know, our goal is to help inform you, educate you, put you on the path to greatness, and make sure that JumpStart is a part of that journey for you. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks again, Rich, for your time.
All right.